Hi guys, this is Max here, back again with hopefully another great political video, and today we're going to take a look at the 2022 United States governor's elections. Now, oftentimes these elections are being a little overlooked. People tend to think, well, they don't influence national decision making, so why should we even care? Well, to be quite honest, actually, the governors have the most influence on how you live your personal life because they're the ones who ought to enforce the law, and they're the ones that make decisions on the state level. And on the state level, many very important decisions are being made, such as education, policing, and oftentimes also the curtailing of union power. So, what I want to go through today is every single state in every single race that's up in 2022 and how this race is going to go down. Now, this is the consensus from the 270 to win map. I slightly disagree with this, and I'm going to explain why on every single race. Now, Maine, I believe I view that as a complete toss-up, because the former Republican governor, his name is, I actually forgot his name, but he's running again, and historically, polls in Maine have always overestimated Democrats, so I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happens again. New York, I'm actually tempted towards putting New York as lean Democrat because it does look like Kathy Hochul is not in the best position as of right now. Lee Zeldin is running a very strong campaign, especially in Long Island. He will have much better results than Donald Trump did in 2020. This race will definitely be within 15 points. However, as right now, I still think that Hochul, simply based off the democratic nature of New York City, does have the edge. Now, Connecticut Bob Stefanowski is running again. He almost did beat Ned Lamont in 2018, which was a blue wave year. Had it just been a neutral year, he would have won. So this time, I think Ned Lamont will still win, but it's again going to be a close race. Even though, admittedly, Lamont is more popular now than he was 4 years ago. Pennsylvania I still view as very competitive. Now, obviously, Doug Mastriano, I would put it as still Democrat, but Doug Mastriano, who used to start off in a fairly good position, he was just 4 points behind. He is a very extreme candidate, and even though he will do very well with the Trump base, I do think that there are going to be a lot of ticket-splitting voters that are going to put down Dr. Oz for Senate and Josh Shapiro for governor. I think Shapiro has a slight edge, especially if you consider the long history of Democrat governors in Pennsylvania, but the final word is not spoken yet in that regard. Now, Michigan is likely Democrat is something that I imagine would be reasonable. I mean, Tudor Dixon, she's pretty popular among right-wing YouTube circles like Red Eagle Politics, but I doubt her ability to actually connect with the voters of the state of Michigan. So even though I would put Michigan somewhere in between lean and likely, but because I don't really see any way out Tudor Dixon's going to win, I'm going to keep it likely Democrat. Now, Wisconsin, I think, is going to flip. Tony Evers is just not popular enough of a governor, and it was kind of a fluke for him to win in 2018. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him the boot in 2022. Now, other than that, Illinois I thought would be a little closer. I actually think it's going to be a likely margin as well. I mean, let's be real here. That guy, what's his name again? He's actually on the options for the presidential list. Like, no joke. For the Democrats, he's an option. J.P. Pritzker. They seriously think this guy has some high-level ambitions. And I'm like, bruh, he's just some no-name governor without any real record. And we're just going to go back to the governor's map now. Anyway, Illinois will be within 15 points. Still a Democratic hold, though, almost for certain. Now, I'm glad that they put Georgia as lean Democrat. Stacey Abrams, no matter how much she tries to make a hype around herself as like the second coming of Martin Luther King, the type of voter suppression she claims to be fighting is really just requiring people to show up with a photo ID. And I get it. I don't get it. Like, what is your issue with showing an ID to vote? I mean, you have to show an ID to enter a club. You have to show an ID to take up a loan. You have to show a fucking ID in order to go to a baseball game many times. So why the heck is it racist to ask you to show an ID when you want to vote? I mean, of course, voting is a right, but you also need to register to vote. And is saying that it is voter suppression to require you to do some basic things that everybody is capable of doing, that's just outright BS. Now, Kansas is definitely going to flip Republican. I mean, no offense to the Democrat candidate, and also some will say, well, Kansas voted down abortion restrictions. I mean, yes, they voted that particular issue down, but that doesn't mean that they're going to keep electing a liberal Democrat just because. So, yeah, Kansas is going to flip. I do think New Mexico will stay with the Democrats by a slight margin. However, no, not Lujan. What was her name again? The governor of New Mexico. She does not really have a high approval rating, and I think she'll struggle slightly. Now, Colorado, I wouldn't put yet a safe Democrat, but the incumbent governor there is very popular, so I do think he should cruise to re-election with relative ease. Arizona is really a tough case as well. I mean, had Republicans nominated the more moderate candidate instead of putting up like this complete, absolute Trump sycophant by the name of Carrie Lake, if they would have nominated the more moderate candidate, she would have had a much better chance. This would be a lean to likely Republican race. But because they nominated this crazy bitch, I think it's going to be pretty close. And I do think that there is a scenario where in the end it might actually happen and the Democrats flip the Arizona governorship in what is supposed to be a Republican wave here. But for now, I still give her the benefit of the doubt and say that Carrie Lake will win narrowly, but she will not have a very successful time as governor. Now, in Nevada, the Republicans ought to be much more confident about their chances. Polling does show that sheriff guy, what was his name again? Sorry, I'm really struggling with the names today. Now, polling does show the Republican nominee slightly behind because polling always underestimates Republicans. I mean, at least that's what it's done in recent years. However, the Nevada Democrat governor, he's not very popular, and the overall situation in our country with inflation, price increases, actually, Nevada, we're going to come back to that one later. But first of all, I want to take a look at Oregon. I used to put Oregon as tilt Republican, but now I actually put it as lean Republican. Not because Oregon is all of a sudden becoming a more conservative state, but especially because there is a very progressive third-party challenger on the ballot, and that third party is to the left of the Democrat Party, and a surprisingly large amount of people are voting against their own self-interest, which would be to just support the Democratic nominee and instead support the more progressive nominee. Maybe just in order to show the middle finger to the Democrat Party establishment. Either way, it seems to be working, because as right now, Republicans are ahead for the Oregon governorship. Now, this gives us two states left, Nevada and Maine. Now, in the state of Maine, what is going to happen? Are the Democrats favored, or are the Republicans favored? Well, let me think about this a little. Okay, so I think I'm going to put it as tilt Democrat. And to be completely honest, I think Paul LePage, who was the former Republican governor, whose name I wasn't able to remember earlier, even though he was very successful, the times where he won, there was always a third-party candidate on the ballot, and now Maine has ranked choice voting, and that's going to overall hurt him. For Nevada, I believe that this is also a difficult one. Now, the Democrat governor of Nevada, I think he was reelected in 2018, and he is going up against Joe Lombardo, who is he's nothing but essentially a police chief or a sheriff or something in that regard. And it does look like that he has actually taken over Steve Sisolak in terms of the polling aggregate. And Republicans haven't won in Nevada in a while, but I'm going to make a bold move and put it as lean Republican as well. This will be one of the most significant pickups for Republicans at the governor's level, and I also think they're going to win the Senate race there. Doesn't mean that Nevada is going to permanently trend to be more Republican, but it definitely aligns with what we see throughout the entire nation, that Latinos and Hispanics seem to vote for Republicans in larger amounts, mostly rural, less educated Hispanics. Okay, now this video surprisingly didn't take as long as I thought it would, but we came to the conclusion that there will be 30 Republican and 20 democratically held governorships at the end of the day. So that is a slight overall improvement for Republicans, but as you can see, both parties are going to flip seats. The Democrats are going to flip Massachusetts, Maryland, and the Republicans will flip Oregon, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Kansas. Republicans could have kept both Maryland and Massachusetts if, number one, Donald Trump wouldn't have primaried out Charlie Baker by endorsing an opponent and essentially forcing Baker to not run again because he'd lose. And if Maryland hadn't voted in what is essentially a standard MAGA Republican to run against the Democrats, they would have had a serious chance because the Democrat nominee is actually very progressive and a little far off the rails. And as we have seen in the past with Larry Hogan, if it's a very progressive Democrat versus a moderate Republican, Maryland would be more likely to elect a moderate Republican. But hey, they've decided to go with a Trump sycophant out of principle, just in order to sock the orange man's cock. Okay, now, I think this is it for now. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, please leave a like, subscription, comment, go ahead, and see you guys for the next video. Max out.